Okay, welcome back to the discussion 2.1. There's a couple of questions posted, so I will go through a few of these. But let's start. So I have question number 1. There was one question about just graphing in general. So we'll look at question 1 and 2. But number 1 says to graph the interval -4 to 7, and there's brackets on both, right? So that is to say the numbers between 4 and 7, that's our interval, and then the corner brackets here mean that these numbers are included. So if we create our little number line here, -4 to +7, right? Zero's in there somewhere, doesn't matter. It's probably closer this way, but it doesn't matter, right? It's probably here. But we're talking about all of these numbers in between here, and we're including 4 and we're including 7. Excuse me, we're including -4 and we're including 7, so I fill them in with a circle. Right? Some books, instead of circles, have just a bracket and then the numbers between the two. But either way, it doesn't matter. But this is how you would graph that. Number 2 is similar. Let's take a look at number 2. Number 2 says to graph the numbers between 5 and 10. But here we have parentheses. So if I'm graphing these, right, you just call 5 wherever it is to conveniently call it, and we've got the numbers 5 to 10. Right? There are parentheses on both of these, so it would be an open on both and then a shade in between. Right? And that's 5 to 10. And again, if some of the books you'll see, instead of open circles here, you'd see just the parentheses and then the numbers between. But that's 1 and 2. Let's look at number 6, was asked in both classes. We're asked to solve the inequality. And we have 2x minus 5 is greater than or equal to 3. So again, it's an inequality, so I can add and subtract as long as I do it to both sides. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides, add 5 here. That gives me 2x is greater than or equal to 8. And I can just divide. Divide by 2. I don't have to mess with this inequality because I divided by a positive number. And that's it. That's my solution, right? So if I want to write this in interval notation, which it asked me to do, right? X is greater than or equal to 4, let's picture it. It's all of the numbers greater than 4, which is all of these guys, but also including 4, so it's a filled in circle, right? Which if I were to write this in interval notation would be a bracket 4, and then it goes off to infinity, and infinity always has a parentheses, right? So this is the solution. They ask you to identify the form. The form is a bracket, some number a to b, and a parenthesis. And then it specifically says what is a is 4, what is b is the infinity symbol. And that's number 6. All right, let's look at number 7. Is 15 is greater than 7x plus 1. Strictly greater than 7x plus 1. So I'll do the same thing. I want to subtract 1 from the right to isolate my x. So that gives me 14 is greater than 7x. Right? And if I divide by 7, I have 2 is greater than x, right? And a lot of people hate to read it this way. They like to see the x first, they like everything in relation to the x. But you can read this backwards. If you read this right to left, the meaning of the symbol changes. This simply means that x is less than 2. Or if you want to write it out, it's x is less than 2, right? If you rewrite it with x on the left, remember the little alligator thing, the alligator's eating the bigger number, it's gonna turn around, eat the bigger number over here, right? The graph of this is then simply all of those numbers, beginning at 2, but not including 2, and to the left. X is less than those, right? And therefore, my answer here would be negative infinity up to 2, not including 2, and again, those infinities are always inside of parentheses, never a bracket. And that's my answer. Alright, let's look at number 8. Okay. I have 3 times x minus 5 in parentheses is less than 2 times 2x minus 1 . Alright, so I would begin by distributing. So I take my 3 and distribute it through. That gives me 3x minus 15 is less than 4x minus 4. Right. I want to get all of my x's to the right hand side because if I subtract 3x, I'll just end up with a positive x over there. So that's what I'll do. If you don't like that, subtract your 4x and deal with a negative over here, right? It doesn't matter which one you do. I'm going to push them to the right and add 4. So that gives me negative 11 is less than x, right? Or x is greater than negative 11. X is simply to the right of negative 11, right? If we rewrite it this way, x is greater than negative 11, just simply means that x is any number to the right of negative 11 on our number line, which is, here's negative 11, it's an open because x is not negative 11, but it's anything greater. And so again, that's negative 11 to infinity and not inclusive, so parenthesis and infinity is always in a parentheses, and that's number 8. Alright, thanks. We'll see you next time for 2.2.